The air was thick with dust, the ground covered in black rock fragments. I squeezed out, shining my flashlight into the spot we had just detonated. The fissure was completely sealed, the snakes outside could no longer get in, but it wouldn't be easy for us to retreat the way we came. Among the 4 remaining people, Tuyanbio's condition was relatively stable, with only a few scratches and bloodstains on his hands from the rock fragments. Professor Chen was still unconscious. Deep Yet's tam was tightly compressed by the blast's pressure, suffocating in her chest, and had fainted again. I put my finger to her nose to check. Oh no, her breathing had stopped. I thought this was bad. This girl's body was originally frail, and affected by the blast's pressure, her breathing was constricted. Immediate resuscitation was needed. At this moment, the 3 conscious people were I, Tuyanbio, and Shirley Yang. Both our ears were temporarily deaf, unable to recover quickly, making verbal communication impossible. I gestured to Shirley Yang to quickly perform artificial respiration on Deep Yet's tam. Suddenly, I saw Shirley Yang's nose bleeding, and hastily reminded her to stop the bleeding. Shirley Yang casually tore a piece of clothing to plug her nose. She dipped her finger in blood and wrote a few characters on her palm, then pointed to Deep Yet's tam. I shone my flashlight onto her palm and saw the 3 letters, center, written there. What did it mean? I didn't understand. Did it mean Deep Yet's tam was beyond saving? I looked at her and shook my head. Seeing that I didn't understand, Shirley Yang set aside her bleeding nose, bent down, placed both hands on Deep Yet's tam's chest and pressed down hard. Only then did I understand that she wanted me to perform cardiac massage on Deep Yet's tam. Just as I was about to help, Deep Yet's tam let out a grunt, exhaled a breath, and began coughing incessantly. I quickly told Tuyanbio to get her some water to drink a few sips. Shirley Yang saw that Deep Yet's tam was recovering, then raised her head, pressed firmly on her ear cartilage, and stopped her nosebleed. Just as the situation stabilized a little, and before I could worry about our immediate predicament, a new danger emerged. The legendary ghost cave was located deep within Zaklama mountain. The mountain was like a hollow black shell, and we were probably somewhere beneath that shell. Because the mountain was hollow, a huge internal expansive force had formed over thousands of years, creating many large and small cracks inside. The recent explosion had shaken the mountain, producing a compressive force that squeezed into those small fissures. This compressive force grew larger and larger, creating a domino effect that spread everywhere. My ears were temporarily deaf, but I could feel the mountain shaking. The very narrow crack above our heads was gradually widening, and rock fragments fell like rain, becoming even more violent. While shielding my head from the pouring small rocks, I urged the others to quickly leave. We could only temporarily follow the fissure upwards. After crawling a short distance, the path behind us was filled with rock fragments. If we stopped for even a moment, we would either be crushed by rocks or buried alive. We stumbled along, not knowing how far we had crawled. Our hands were bloody from sharp rock fragments. Everyone was panting, feeling as if their hearts would leap from their chests, thirsty and tired. We also had to carry the unconscious Professor Chen and the weak Deep Yet's tam. Finally, utterly exhausted, unable to lift our legs, we decisively closed our eyes and gave up. If we were to be buried alive, then so be it, we wouldn't run anymore. Unexpectedly, at that very moment, the mountain stopped tearing apart. The space of over a meter behind us was completely sealed. We all collapsed, gasping for breath, wanting water but not daring to drink it quickly. A moment later, Tuyanbio spoke. "Nyat damn it, are we still alive or are we dead?" I looked at the pitch, black rocks around us, and said, "I feel the same. We're temporarily alive, but probably about to die." Tuyanbio was probably utterly exhausted, his mind not clear. He turned to Shirley Yang beside him and said, "Miss Yang, I'd like to say goodbye to you first. Soon, my brother and I will be reporting to Yama, while you will go meet your god. You have a long journey, remember to take care." Shirley Yang replied, "For God's sake, what time is it now? Can you two stop talking nonsense? Hey, I can hear again." I opened my mouth, moving my jaw up and down. Though my ears were still ringing slightly, I was no longer completely deaf. Everyone checked the number of water bottles and luggage. My water bottle had been lost somewhere during the chaos. Deep Yet's Tam was still unconscious when we entered the city and didn't carry a water bottle. Adding the water from the remaining people, the total was no more than 2 bottles. I said, although the reality isn't easy to accept, I still have to tell everyone. We are currently deep inside Zoklama Mountain. There's no way out in any direction. I don't know if there's any ventilation here. If not, we'll probably suffocate in another half hour. The remaining explosives are also lost. Based on our strength, I'm afraid we can't get out. Some of our group are dead, others are injured. Outside, only old Anlaman is left. That old man is very cunning. He might have already fled if he saw the situation was unfavorable, so there's no hope of anyone from outside coming to rescue us. Tuyen Bio said, either way, overthinking is useless. My throat is parched. We only have 2 bottles of water left, so let's just share and drink them first, then talk about other things. I divided the water in half, giving 1/2 to Deep Yet's Tam and Professor Chen, and the other half we 3 shared. Shirley Young drank 2 sips but couldn't swallow it. She was silent for a moment, then said, if it's true that we are to die here, it's probably all my fault. If I hadn't been so determined to find the ancient city of Jingju, so many things wouldn't have happened, and so many people wouldn't have been implicated. I waved my hand, interrupting her. You can't say that. We Chinese have a saying, people die for wealth, birds die for food. My brother and I are responsible for our own choices. If we hadn't coveted your $40,000, we wouldn't have fallen into this predicament. Besides, Professor Chen and his colleagues, in their profession, would have found a way to reach the Jingju ruins, even if you hadn't funded them. Speaking of this, I suddenly remembered Shirley Yang once telling me a story. Before, she used to constantly dream of this ghost cave, even seeing iron chains on the queen's coffin. She also said that in her dream she vaguely saw something very large above the coffin, but could never clearly make out what it was. Wasn't that precisely the flower of hell, the corpse scent flower, blooming on the coffin lid? At the time, Shirley Yang thought this was her missing explorer father appearing in her dreams. Now, recalling it, I found it incredibly coincidental. Could Shirley Yang have prophetic abilities? I immediately spoke up to ask about it. Shirley Yang shook her head and replied, before, it was as if a voice constantly called to me, telling me to come to this ghost cave. But when I saw the bottomless ghost cave with my own eyes, I realized that my father's expedition team had never reached this place. Perhaps they died somewhere in the desert. But why did I dream of coming to a place I'd never set foot in before? I don't understand that either. Tuyen Bio was surprised and replied, how can this be? Maybe in a past life you were the queen of Jingju, now returning to your old country. He hadn't finished his sentence when a series of fracturing sounds echoed from within the mountain. It seemed the aftershocks of the earlier explosion hadn't ended, and now another wave hit. We had rested for a moment, but now facing imminent death, we were naturally unwilling to give up. We saw a large crevice open up ahead. The flashlight beam swept inside, and unexpectedly we seemed to see someone sitting there. At that moment the mountain ripped open again, and rock fragments fell like rain. We didn't have time to look closely. Seeing a path, we just rushed forward to deal with it later. Shirley Yang held the flashlight to light the way, Tuyen Bio carried Professor Chen, and I supported Deep Yet's Tam. Together, we squeezed into the newly opened rock crevice ahead. Before we could clearly see where we were, we felt our breathing was not smooth. There was a lot of dust here, and it had been sealed for many years, so the air didn't circulate. We quickly put on our gas masks, only to hear rumbling sounds from behind us as a dozen black rocks crashed down, completely blocking the exit. Seeing that the path was cut off, I turned to examine our surroundings. It turned out that where we were standing was a square stone chamber, about 10 square meters wide. On the ground was an ancient stone coffin. The material of the coffin stone was completely different from the black rock found anywhere in the ancient city of Jingju. The stone casket was gray and looked very ancient, with a strange shape we had never seen or even heard of. The stone coffin was over 1/2 meter high and over 1 meter long, exquisitely crafted. Several carvings were depicted on it, but we didn't know their purpose. We were engrossed in observing the strange stone casket, not noticing that two figures were sitting cross-legged on either side of it. As we approached, a sudden sweep of the flashlight revealed them, startling all three of us. The flashlights in our hands fell to the ground. We only heard Tuyanbio exclaim, "Tu Zongzi." In the darkness, Shirley Yang took out a spare flashlight. Under its beam, we saw only two figures sitting cross-legged next to the stone coffin. They turned out to be two desiccated corpses. These two corpses, one old and one young, had both turned dark brown. The older corpse still clearly showed a beard under its chin and was draped in goatskin. The other remains appeared to be those of a child. Both were sitting cross-legged, seemingly guarding this eerie stone coffin. I checked carefully, breathed a sigh of relief, and said to Tuyanbio, "From now on, don't keep mentioning Zongzi at every turn. You'll scare people to death with no life to pay." These two corpses are clearly almost petrified, at least 1,000 years old. Damn it. This turns out to be a burial chamber. Shirley Yang glared at me and angrily said, "You're really good. Still trying to deceive me. You two are clearly grave robbers." I was startled, secretly thinking this was bad. Had we accidentally said anything? Could an American like Shirley Yang also understand what Zongzi meant? Fortunately, Professor Chen was unconscious and heard nothing. Deep Yet's Tam also seemed to be half-conscious, probably unable to hear our conversation. I quickly argued, "Didn't I tell you? I'm someone who loves studying astronomy and Feng Shui, not a grave robber. Don't baselessly tarnish my good name like that in the future." Tuyanbio's and my reputations are both excellent. Back in our hometown, we were young men whose good deeds were known throughout the region. I'm a demobilized soldier, and Tuyanbio back then was chosen by his unit every year as a Red Flag March 8th model worker or something like that, you know? Tuyanbio saw I was flustered and had misspoken the last sentence. He quickly corrected me and conveniently changed the subject. Don't listen to his nonsense. His mother was the Red Flag March 8th model worker. I was a member of the youth shock team. It's truly embarrassing, we were both nurtured by the party and the people. But this stone casket really looks peculiar. I wonder what's inside. Shirley Yang didn't respond to us. Suddenly, she said, "The fixed fat man hangs 1,000 gold, the sea child shouts loudly, the stone hook rod pours a great cauldron of grain, the moon shadow cannot be seen from afar." Outsiders wouldn't understand her words, but I understood perfectly. This was the argot of grave robbing. Because our profession is one that doesn't see the light of day, just like the underworld has its own secret language. In the underworld, selling women is called opening a list, smuggling goods is called carrying green, child trafficking is carrying stones, stealing is called Buddha, and so on. Our grave robbing profession is called doo-doo. Each profession has its own specific jargon for practitioners to communicate easily. During the Republic of China era, my grandfather specialized in finding yin dwellings and feng shui locations for people. At that time, he was one of the few renowned feng shui masters in the region and had even befriended a Mojin Xiaowei, so he was thoroughly versed in every aspect of this trade. He knew the slang of doo-doo better than his hometown dialect. The sentence Shirley Yang just spoke to me roughly meant, "You are truly wicked, always speaking lies. You clearly look like a professional grave robber, swift and agile, you can't fool my eyes." I was caught off guard by her question and didn't have time to think carefully. Usually, when praised as a master by colleagues, one would be a little humble, so I blurted out, "How dare I claim to be a Yuanling? Climbing the mountain to collect firewood, descending the mountain to light fires. May I ask this, Shang Yuanling, where did you divide the mountain armor, and how many hill gates have you removed?" Shirley Yang continued, "A river belt, 2 banks with scenery, together climbing the mountain to collect firewood, descending the mountain to light fires. The jay divides the mountain armor, the hawk removes the hill gates. Many times have I ascended the treasure halls, where can one find the dragon towers?" Our exchange was perfectly matched. I was both astonished and regretful. Damn it, this time I fell for this American girl's trick. Hadn't I just admitted to being a doo-doo grave robber? But it was truly strange. These slang phrases, few understood them before the liberation, and after the liberation, they were basically considered lost. Even Goldtooth's father, who was a semi-professional grave robber for many years, only knew a few terms. I truly couldn't imagine these words coming from the mouth of such a young American girl. If I hadn't heard and seen it face to face, you could beat me to death and I wouldn't believe it. Could she be someone from the same profession? Hearing her speak the slang, I could guess it was a family inheritance, but she only knew the art of grave robbing, not the Feng Shui techniques for finding burial sites and ley lines. No, I absolutely couldn't admit to this. I'd continue to play dumb. With that thought, I said, "These verses are what we learned in elementary school." I didn't realize American elementary school textbooks were so similar to China's. Shirley Yang saw that I was stubbornly arguing and wouldn't admit it, so she said, "All right, this isn't the place to talk. If we can survive and escape from here, I hope to have a serious conversation with you sometime." I felt like I had received a great pardon. I quickly stood up and searched everywhere for an exit, secretly thinking, if I can still go back, it'll be a long time before I let you find me, hee hee. At most, I'll go back to my hometown and stop making a living in Beijing. But immediately I thought, no, she still hasn't paid me. This is really difficult. What exactly is her intention? It can't be like the fat man said, that she's fallen for me, right? Or is she going to report me? That's impossible, right? Or is her ancestor actually a Mojin Xiaowei? Then we'd be a good match. While I was lost in thought, Tuyan Bio and Shirley Yang had already fumbled around the small burial chamber several times. Above and below, right and left, were all pitch, black rock walls. Some places had cracks, but they were all too small, and no way out could be found. Just then, Professor Chen cried out and woke up. His mind was still not clear. He was crying one moment and laughing the next, recognizing no one. We had no medicine or doctor, so we didn't know what to do but leave him in his delirious state. Finally, our eyes fell upon the stone coffin lying between the two dried corpses. However, no matter how precious anything inside might be, for those of us on the verge of death, it was completely meaningless. Tuyan Bio patted the coffin and said, "I wonder what poor ghost is buried in this tomb. Besides the goat skin on their bodies, there's not a single decent burial object. There's probably nothing interesting in here." Shirley Yang carefully examined the carvings on the stone casket, then suddenly looked up and said, "Do you remember me mentioning the Great Tang records on the western regions? It contains records about Zoklama Mountain." I replied, "I still remember. It also seemed to say that this was a sacred mountain, burying two immortal saints. But it surely can't be these two, one old and one young, right? This burial chamber is too simple, completely unsuitable for the status of immortal saints." I originally intended to continue by saying that I had seen many large ancient tombs, and this burial chamber within the Rocky Mountain fundamentally did not conform to Feng Shui theories. If there was a fierce spot beneath the mountain, how could anyone be buried above it? However, speaking these words would inevitably expose my identity, so I only spoke halfway, swallowing the rest of my words. Shirley Yang said, "The two people buried here are not immortal saints. This child is likely a disciple or descendant of the immortal saint, referred to as the prophet, and the old man is his old servant." I asked in surprise, "How do you know? Do the carvings on this coffin say so? What other content is there on it?" Shirley Yang called Tuyan Bio and me to come and see. These dozen carvings on the stone casket record an ancient prophecy. The drawings are very simple, and the symbolic signs are very clear. I think I can understand some of it. The more I listened, the stranger it seemed. What kind of prophecy? Does it say where the secret underground passage of this stone chamber is? Shirley Yang shook her head. No, this prophecy might not be entirely accurate. The prophet said that after he died, no one would come to this tomb until one day, 4 people would inadvertently open this stone casket. Tuyan Bio mumbled, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 of us in total, aren't there? Does that mean Professor Chen, being delirious, doesn't count as a person anymore? This prophecy clearly isn't accurate. He was probably just one of those charlatans who swindle people. I stared intently at the 4 remaining people. If the prophet wasn't a swindler, this prophecy might not refer only to us. Besides that, there's still another possibility. One of us isn't human.